Ambassador Hun stood in the grand chamber of the Galactic Council, his four eyes scanning the holographic display before him. The image showed a small blue planet orbiting an unremarkable yellow star in the outer regions of the galaxy. He had seen dozens of planets just like it during his long career as a diplomat. This one was called Earth. Council Elder floated beside him, her translucent body pulsing with soft purple light. She gestured toward the planet with one of her many tentacles. "This is a simple assignment, Ambassador. Standard first contact evaluation. The species calls themselves humans." Hun nodded slowly. He had performed this duty 47 times before. The process was always the same. Travel to a primitive world, observe their civilization, assess their development level, and report back to the Council. Most species were still learning to use fire when the Council found them. The more advanced ones had just discovered electricity or built their first computers. "What do we know about them?" Hun asked, his voice carrying the formal tone of someone who had given the same question many times. Manipulated the hologram. Numbers and charts appeared in the air. They achieved radio transmission about 600 years ago by their time measurement. They launched their first space vessel 580 years ago. Our long-range sensors detected basic satellite networks and primitive space stations orbiting there. Hun examined the data. Everything seemed normal, expected, boring even. Civilization class. Class 4 replied, barely space-capable. They have sent a few small probes to nearby planets in their system, but nothing substantial. No colonies, no advanced propulsion. They still use chemical rockets. Chemical rockets? Hun almost laughed. Most species abandon such crude technology within a century of reaching space. The humans were clearly slow developers. Any concerns? His body flickered, a sign of hesitation in her species. Their history shows significant violence, multiple global wars, nuclear weapons deployed against their own kind, environmental destruction of their standard primitive behavior but worth noting. "So they are dangerous to themselves but not to us," Hun said. "Another common pattern. Young species often nearly destroyed themselves before learning wisdom. How current is this data?" "Approximately 50 years old," admitted. "The monitoring station in that sector had equipment failures. We are operating on the last complete survey." 50 years was nothing in galactic terms. Most species barely changed in such a short time. Hun had once evaluated a world where 50 years passed and the inhabitants had only invented slightly better pottery. "That should be sufficient. What are my instructions?" "Observe their civilization, document their technological level, assess their readiness for contact. Standard protocol." Handed him a data crystal. "All the information we have is here. We expect your report in one standard week." Hun took the crystal. 1 week was generous. Most primitive worlds took him only 3 days to evaluate. He would land, watch them struggle with their basic machines, confirm they were nowhere near ready for galactic society, and leave. "I will depart immediately." "One more thing," said. Her body pulsed darker. "You will go alone. Council regulations for Class 4 civilizations. We do not want to frighten them with a large vessel or multiple visitors." Understood. Hun had expected this. Primitive species often panicked when confronted with superior technology and alien life. One diplomat in a small ship was less threatening than a fleet. He had done this alone many times before. He left the council chamber and walked through the massive space station that served as the government center for 47 different species. Aliens of every shape and size moved through the corridors. Some walked on legs, others floated, some slithered. The diversity of the galaxy never ceased to amaze him, even after centuries of service. His ship waited in the docking bay. It was small, elegant, and equipped with everything he needed for a simple evaluation mission. The vessel could travel faster than light, turn invisible to primitive sensors, and protect him from any danger a Class 4 civilization might present. which was to say, no danger at all. Hun settled into the pilot seat and inserted the data crystal. Information about Earth flooded his screens. He skimmed through it while the ship's computer plotted a course to the Sol system. That was what humans called their star. Sol, a simple name for a simple species. He read about their culture. They were divided into many nations, though some progress toward unity had been made. They spoke thousands of different languages. They created art, music, and literature. They had religions and philosophies. All of this was typical. Every species did these things. What caught his attention was a file about one of their scientists. Doctor, she was an astrophysicist who had published theories about faster-than-light travel. Hun read her work with mild interest. Her mathematics were crude but showed some understanding of the basic concepts. She was wrong about most of it, of course. Humans would need at least another 1,000 years before they could build an FTL drive, but it was cute that she tried. The ship lifted off from the docking bay and accelerated into open space. Within moments, they entered faster-than-light travel. The stars stretched into lines of light around him. The journey to Earth would take about 2 days. Hun spent the time reviewing the files and preparing his report template. He already knew what he would write. Species shows typical Class 4 development, technologically primitive, socially immature, not ready for contact. Recommend continued monitoring for another 500 to 1,000 years. He had written the same report with minor variations 47 times. This would be number 48. The ship dropped out of FTL at the edge of the Sol system. Hun engaged the stealth systems and began moving toward the inner planets. His sensors swept the area, looking for satellites and space stations. He would observe their capabilities from a distance first, then move closer to The sensor screen lit up. Hun stared at it, then he checked the sensors. They must be malfunctioning. They were not malfunctioning. He leaned forward in his seat, his 4 eyes widening. That cannot be right. But it was right. The sensors did not lie. His 2-day journey to deliver a routine report about a primitive species had just become something else entirely. Something the Galactic Council had not prepared him for. Something that made his 3 centuries of diplomatic experience suddenly feel inadequate. Hun gripped the armrests of his chair and stared at the impossible readings on his screen, knowing that everything he thought he knew about humans was wrong. The sensor display showed 17 satellites that should not exist. Hun counted them again. Still 17. Advanced satellites with quantum-encrypted communications arrays orbiting the outer edge of the solar system. These were not primitive monitoring devices. These were sophisticated defensive platforms using technology that humans should not possess for at least another 800 years. His ship's computer beeped a warning. One of the satellites had detected him despite his stealth systems. That should not be possible either. Unknown vessel, you have entered Sol system space. The voice came through his communications array in perfect galactic standard, the universal language used by the Council. Please identify yourself and state your purpose. Hun sat frozen in his seat, humans speaking galactic standard. How? The Council had never made contact with Earth. No one had taught them the language. Unknown vessel, this is Mars Defense Coordination. We are tracking your position. Please respond or we will consider you hostile. Mars Defense Coordination. Mars, the red planet. According to his data, humans had sent a few small rovers there decades ago. Nothing more. Certainly not a defense coordination center. Hun's hands moved across his controls. He deactivated the stealth system. No point in hiding now. This is Ambassador Hun of the Galactic Council. I come in peace. I am here to observe your civilization as part of standard council protocol. Silence. Then the voice returned, now with a hint of excitement. Ambassador Hun, this is Commander Park. We have been expecting someone like you for years. Welcome to the Sol system. Please proceed to Mars. We will guide you in. Expecting him, guide him in, Hun felt his confusion growing. "Commander Park, how did you learn Galactic Standard?" "We intercepted Council transmissions about 8 years ago," replied casually, as if this were a normal thing. "Took us 3 weeks to decode the language, another year to achieve fluency. We have been monitoring Council communications ever since. It is how we knew the Council existed." 3 weeks. Hun had trained for 3 years to learn Galactic Standard. Most species needed at least 2 years. 3 weeks was impossible. He set course for Mars, following the navigation beacon the humans sent him. As he approached, his sensors began picking up more impossible things: massive industrial complexes on the Martian surface, atmospheric processors, power generation facilities, spacecraft moving between Mars and its 2 moons. When Mars came into view, Hun could not believe his eyes. The planet was green, patches of it anyway. Clouds swirled in a thin but growing atmosphere. Lights dotted the surface, marking cities and settlements. "Commander Park," Hun said slowly, "how long have humans been on Mars?" "The first permanent settlement was established 32 years ago," answered. "We now have a population of approximately 2 million. Please land at coordinates I am sending you. Doctor will meet you. She is a scientist who studied alien life. Humans had a scientist who studied alien life before they had even met aliens." Hun landed his ship at the designated coordinates. He stepped out onto Martian soil, his protective suit adjusting automatically to the thin atmosphere. A human woman approached him. She wore a simple environment suit and carried a tablet device. "Ambassador Hun," she said, bowing slightly. "I am Doctor. Welcome to Mars. We are honored by your visit." Hun studied her. She was calm, not frightened at all by meeting an alien being for the first time. "Doctor, I must admit I am confused. My data indicated humans were a Class 4 civilization, basic space capability only, but what I see here suggests something very different." Smiled. "Your data is 50 years old, Ambassador. We have been busy during that time. Would you like a tour?" She led him through the settlement. Hun walked in stunned silence. Underground cities stretched for kilometers beneath the surface. Hydroponic farms grew food. Fusion reactors provided unlimited clean energy. Construction crews worked on atmospheric generators the size of mountains. "These atmospheric processors," Hun said, pointing at one of the massive machines. "This is Class 2 technology. Humans should not have this." "We developed it ourselves," explained. "We needed to terraform Mars if we wanted to live here long-term, so we figured it out. It took 8 years of research and about 200 failed prototypes, but we got it working." 8 years. Most council species needed centuries to develop terraforming technology. They entered an observation dome overlooking a vast canyon, gestured to the view. "That is Vols. We are building a water channel there. When complete, it will be the largest river in the solar system." "Why?" Hun asked. "Why terraform Mars? Why not simply live in enclosed habitats?" Looked at him with surprise. "Because Mars deserves to be alive. Because we can. Because turning a dead world into a living one is perhaps the most beautiful thing humans can do." They visited a manufacturing facility where robots and humans worked side by side, building new spacecraft. They saw schools where Martian-born children learned mathematics and science. They toured a hospital using medical technology Hun had only seen in advanced council worlds. In an observation room, Hun met Minyu, the colony administrator. Minyu was an older man with gray hair and tired but kind eyes. "What do you think of our little settlement, Ambassador?" "Little," Hun said. "You have 2 million people here. You have turned Mars into a living world. You have technology that should not exist. I do not understand how this is possible." Minyu leaned back in his chair. "We are good at 2 things, Ambassador. We are good at nearly destroying ourselves, and we are good at fixing our mistakes before we actually do it. We almost ruined Earth. We learned from that. When we came to Mars, we brought the lessons with us. But the speed, Hun insisted. The Council's models predict it takes species an average of 2,000 years to establish off-world colonies. You did it in decades. Maybe we were motivated, Minyu said. Maybe we looked at Earth and realized we needed more than one basket for our eggs. Maybe we just really like building things. Does it matter why? Brought Hun to a conference room with a large holographic display. She activated it, showing him the entire Sol system. Mars is not our only colony, Ambassador. We have permanent settlements on 6 planets and 14 moons. Europa, Titan, Enceladus, Ganymede, Callisto, our own moon of course. Mining operations in the asteroid belt. Research stations throughout the system. Hun stared at the display. Every dot of light represented human presence, human achievement, human impossibility. "How many of you are there?" he asked quietly. "In total in all of space." "In space, about 15 million, said. "But on Earth there are still 14 billion. We did not abandon our to reach the stars. We did both." 14 billion, and they were still expanding, still building, still achieving what should not be achievable. Hun sat down heavily. His legs felt weak. "I need to see Earth," he said. "I need to see your—" "Of course," said. "I will take you there tomorrow, but Ambassador, I should warn you." "Warn me about what?" His expression became serious. "About Earth. You are thinking our must be dying, stripped of resources, polluted and ruined. That is what happens when species expand too fast, correct?" "Yes," Hun admitted, "that is the pattern." "We are not most species," said softly. "When you see Earth, you will understand." That night, Hun sat in his ship and tried to write his report. He stared at the blank screen for hours. None of his usual words fit. None of his standard observations made sense. Finally, he wrote one sentence: "Everything I knew about humans is wrong." Then he deleted it and stared at the blank screen some more. The journey from Mars to Earth took 6 hours aboard a human transport vessel. Hun had declined to use his own ship, wanting to experience human technology firsthand. The transport was clean, efficient, and surprisingly comfortable. Doctor sat across from him, reviewing data on her tablet. "You seem nervous, Ambassador," she observed. Hun's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of stress in his species. "I have evaluated 47 primitive worlds. I thought I knew what to expect from your species. I was wrong. Now I do not know what I will find on Earth." "You will find our home," said simply. "Everything we are comes from that blue planet. Everything we have built, everything we dream of building starts there." As Earth grew larger in the viewport, Hun activated his personal scanner. He expected readings of pollution, atmospheric degradation, deforestation, and resource depletion. Every species that expanded as fast as humans had destroyed there in the process. It was an unavoidable consequence of rapid growth. His scanner showed the opposite. "These readings must be wrong," Hun muttered. "The atmospheric carbon levels are lower than my 50-year-old data indicated. The ocean health markers are excellent. Forest coverage has increased by 18%. "The readings are correct," said. "We spent 40 years fixing Earth. It was not easy. It took global cooperation, massive resource investment, and technological breakthroughs. But we did it." "Why?" Hun asked. "Why spend resources healing you when you could use those resources to expand faster?" Looked at him with something like pity. "Because it is our home. You do not abandon your mother because you grew up." They landed in Seoul, one of Earth's major cities. Hun stepped out of the transport and immediately noticed the air. It was clean, remarkably clean. His sensors detected no pollution. Trees lined every street. Gardens covered rooftops. The city hummed with quiet energy. Premier Sora Lee met them at the landing pad. She was a dignified woman in her 60s with sharp eyes and a warm smile. "Ambassador Hun, Earth welcomes you. We have waited a long time to meet our galactic neighbors." Premier Lee, Hun said, performing a formal council greeting. Your civilization has surprised me greatly. Good, Sora said. We like surprises. Come, let me show you what we have built. They took a magnetic levitation train through the city. Hun pressed against the window, watching. Buildings rose high into the sky, but they were covered with vegetation. Solar panels and wind collectors integrated seamlessly into the architecture. People moved through the streets on foot, on bicycles, and in small electric vehicles. Children played in parks. Elderly humans sat on benches feeding birds. Where are the factories? Hun asked. The industrial centers. Underground mostly, Sora explained. Or in orbital facilities. We decided cities should be for living, not for manufacturing. Humans need green spaces. We need to see the sky and touch the earth. So we rebuilt our cities around that principle. They visited a fusion reactor on the city's edge. It was a beautiful building, looking more like a temple than a power plant. Engineer Shin gave them a tour. He was a young man with enthusiastic energy and oil-stained hands. This reactor provides power for the entire Seoul megacity, explained. 15 million people, 0 emissions, 0 waste. The fuel comes from seawater. We have enough fuel in Earth's oceans to power our civilization for 1,000,000 years. Fusion power is Class 2 technology, Hun said. You achieved this in how long? First working reactor was 43 years ago, said. Now we have 212 reactors across Earth. Every human has access to unlimited clean energy. They traveled to what humans called the demilitarized zone. Once, explained, this had been a border between two nations at war. Now it was the largest nature preserve in Eastern Asia. Hun walked through pristine forests where no human had stepped for 100 years. Birds sang. Deer watched them from safe distances. This was a place of death, said quietly. Soldiers died here. Families were separated here. Now look at it. Life finds a way when we let it. At a research center, Hun met historian Song. She was an elderly woman who had dedicated her life to preserving human culture. Her archive contained millions of books, recordings, artworks, and artifacts. Why preserve all of this? Hun asked, looking at ancient manuscripts behind protective glass. Because we must remember where we came from, said. Our ancestors were not perfect. They made terrible mistakes. They fought wars. They polluted their world. They created weapons that could destroy everything. But they also created beauty. They wrote poetry. They composed music. They asked big questions about life and meaning. If we forget this, if we only remember the technology and the progress, we lose something essential about being human. She showed him a traditional tea ceremony, performed exactly as it had been for thousands of years. We can travel to Mars and terraform planets, but we still sit and drink tea and talk about the moon. That is what makes us human. At a school, Hun observed children learning. They studied quantum physics and ancient philosophy in the same classroom. A little girl named Han approached him during break time. She stared at him with curious eyes. Are you from space? She asked. Yes, Hun said. I am from very far away. Did your people make mistakes before they got better? The question struck Hun deeply. Yes, we made many mistakes. We still make mistakes. We made mistakes too, said. My teacher says we almost broke our planet, but we fixed it. Do you think we can be friends now, your people and my people? Hun knelt down to her level. I think that would be very nice. That evening, Premier Sora took Hun to the top of a mountain. They watched the sunset over Seoul. The city lights began to glow, but they were soft lights, not the harsh glare he expected. 14 billion humans live on this planet, Sora said. We thought that was too many. We thought we would destroy Earth with our numbers. But we learned we could live sustainably if we tried. We could use technology to heal instead of harm. We could cooperate instead of compete. How? Hun asked. Every civilization the Council has studied reaches a point where they must choose. Expand or preserve. Growth or sustainability. You cannot have both. Why not? Sora asked. Who made that rule? It is not a rule. It is reality. Resources are finite. Resources are finite on any single planet, Sora agreed. But we are not on a single planet anymore. We mine asteroids. We harvest energy from the sun. We build habitats in space. And we use those resources to heal Earth, not destroy it. We refuse to choose between our past and our future. We decided to honor both. Hun watched the sunset in silence. The sky turned orange, then purple, then deep blue. Stars appeared. Among those stars were human colonies, human ships, human dreams. I came here expecting to find a dying world, Hun admitted. A species that sacrificed everything for expansion. And instead, Sora asked, I found a species that refused to sacrifice anything, that insisted on doing the impossible, that healed their world while reaching for the stars. Sora smiled. We are stubborn like that. They sat in comfortable silence as night fell completely. Hun realized something fundamental had shifted in his understanding. Humans were not just another primitive species. They were not following the standard pattern of development. They were writing a new pattern entirely. And the galaxy was not ready for it. Premier Lee, Hun said slowly, tomorrow, Doctor mentioned showing me something about your outer system research. What exactly am I going to see? Sora's smile faded. Her expression became serious. The truth, Ambassador, the thing your council has been hiding from us for 800 years. A cold feeling settled in Hun's chest. What do you mean? You will see tomorrow, Sora said. But I want you to know something. We are not angry. We understand why you did it. We just want to know if you will help us undo it. Hun did not sleep that night. Doctor's research vessel was sleek and fast. They departed Earth before dawn, accelerating quickly away from the inner solar system. Hun sat in the observation deck, watching the planets shrink behind them. Where are we going? He asked. 500 astronomical units from the sun, replied. About 3 days of travel, the outer edge of the Sol system. What is there? Something we were not supposed to find, said quietly. Something we found anyway. The journey gave Hun time to think. He kept replaying his conversations with the humans, their casual confidence, their matter-of-fact acceptance of achieving the impossible. Premier Sora's words haunted him. The thing your council has been hiding from us for 800 years. What did they know? What had they discovered? On the third day, they approached a massive space station. It was larger than anything Hun had seen in human space. Research modules, living quarters, observation platforms, and what appeared to be experimental equipment all connected in a complex web of metal and light. Welcome to Barrier Research Station, announced a voice over the communications system. Doctor is waiting for you. Barrier Research Station. The name sent alarm through Hun's mind. They docked and entered the station. Doctor met them in the main laboratory. He was a man in his 50s with gray hair and the intense focus of someone who had spent years obsessed with a single problem. Ambassador Hun said, shaking his hand in the human gesture of greeting. Thank you for coming. I imagine you know why you are here. I do not, Hun said carefully. Smiled sadly, then let me show you. The laboratory was filled with equipment Hun recognized. Quantum field detectors, subspace analyzers, energy measurement arrays. This was technology for studying the fundamental structure of space itself. 15 years ago, we were conducting experiments in faster-than-light travel. We sent unmanned probes out to the edge of the solar system. Most came back with expected data, but one probe at approximately 460 astronomical units from the sun detected something strange. He pulled up a holographic display. It showed energy readings, mathematical formulas, and three-dimensional models. The probe found a wall, an artificial construct surrounding our entire solar system, a barrier made of exotic matter and energy that should not exist naturally. Hun felt his blood turn cold. At first we thought it was a measurement error, continued. So we sent more probes, dozens of them. We mapped the entire barrier over 8 years. It is a perfect sphere around our sun with Sol at the exact center. An ambassador, it is absolutely, undeniably artificial. What does the barrier do? Hun asked, though he already knew. It prevents faster-than-light travel, said. Any attempt to open a warp field or create a hyperspace window fails at the barrier. It also dampens certain frequencies of subspace communication. Essentially, it is a cage. Someone trapped us in our own solar system. Why would someone do that? Hun asked, trying to sound innocent. Looked at him with knowing eyes. You tell me, Ambassador. Your Galactic Council has existed for over 4,000 years. You have surveyed thousands of worlds, and you just happen to miss the massive artificial structure surrounding Earth. We do not think so. Hun said nothing. What could he say? The human was right. We spent 3 years analyzing the barrier, said. The technology is far beyond anything we can currently build, at least 1,000 years beyond our capabilities, maybe more. It uses principles of physics we are still trying to understand. Whoever built this was trying very hard to keep us contained. And yet you found it, Hun said quietly. We were looking at the stars, said. Of course we found it eventually. Captain entered the laboratory. He was the station commander, a stern man with a military bearing. Ambassador, we understand why the Council built the barrier. We intercepted some of your transmissions, remember. We have seen your debates about primitive species, your fears about violent races reaching space. 800 years ago, Hun said slowly, when the Council first detected Earth's radio signals, we studied your broadcasts. We saw your world wars, your nuclear weapons, your environmental destruction. The Council's predictive models said your species would destroy itself within 300 years. The barrier was meant to isolate you, to let you die naturally without spreading your violence to the galaxy. But we did not die, said. No, you did not. We almost did, Captain admitted. Several times. We came very close to nuclear war, very close to environmental collapse, but we stepped back from the edge. We chose differently, and your Council never knew because the barrier also blocked you from seeing what we had become. A young woman entered the laboratory. She looked barely out of university with bright eyes and a confident stride. Ambassador Hun, I am Wu. I am the engineer who solved the barrier problem. Solved it, Hun's voice cracked. Pulled up a different display. Mathematics filled the air, elegant and complex. The barrier uses a quantum field matrix to disrupt spacetime manipulation, but every field has harmonics, frequencies where it resonates. I found the resonant frequency of the barrier. If we generate a properly tuned counterfield, we can create a temporary opening, a gate through the cage. Hun stared at the equations. She was right. It would work. A 24-year-old human had cracked technology that had taken the Council's best scientists 200 years to develop. When, he asked. We are running final tests now, said. 3 months, maybe less, we will bring down the barrier. And then what? Hun asked. What will you do? Doctor stepped forward. Then we will say hello to the galaxy. We will introduce ourselves to our neighbors. We will share what we have learned and learn from what others can teach us. Isn't that what intelligent beings should do? The Council may not welcome you, Hun warned. They built the barrier for a reason. They feared you. They feared who we were 800 years ago, Captain said. They do not know who we are now. That is why you are here, Ambassador, to tell them. Hun walked to the observation window. He could not see the barrier with normal vision, but the station's sensors showed it clearly. A massive sphere of energy, invisible and impassable, surrounding the human. A cage the humans were about to break. Why are you telling me this? Hun asked. You could have hidden your research, surprised the Council when you broke through. Why show me? Because we do not want to surprise you, said. We want you to understand. We are coming, Ambassador. Nothing you or the Council builds will stop us now, but we would prefer to come as friends. We would prefer the galaxy be ready to meet us peacefully. And if the Council says no, Hun asked, if they try to stop you, then they will fail, said simply. We have already figured out how to break the barrier. Breaking more barriers will only get easier. We would rather cooperate than compete, but we will do what we must to reach the stars. Hun turned to face them. These humans, these impossible, stubborn, brilliant humans who refuse to accept limitations. You understand what you are asking, he said. You are asking me to tell the Council that the species they imprisoned has not only survived but thrived, that you have advanced 800 years of development in 50 years, that you have found their cage and are about to escape it, that you are coming whether they like it or not. Yes, said. That is exactly what we are asking. Is it a message you can deliver? Hun looked at each of them in turn. The scientist who found the impossible, the captain who refused to be contained, the young engineer who solved in months what should take centuries, the who showed him a healed Earth. I will deliver your message, Hun said, but I must warn you. The Council does not adapt quickly. They may react poorly. We know, said, but we must try for both our sakes. The journey back to Earth was quiet. Hun spent the time attempting to write his report. Every sentence he wrote seemed inadequate. How could he explain to the Council what he had seen? How could he make them understand that every assumption about humanity was wrong? More importantly, how could he convince them that the galaxy needed to prepare for something unprecedented? Because in 3 months, maybe less, the barrier would fall, and nothing would be the same again. The Council chamber was exactly as Hun had left it. Same floating platforms, same holographic displays, same 47 species represented by their ambassadors. Everything was the same except him. He stood before the Council with his report crystal in his hand, the crystal that should contain a simple evaluation, the crystal that instead contained evidence that would shake the foundations of galactic civilization. Council Elder floated at the center, her body pulsing with calm purple light. Ambassador Hun, you have returned from Earth. Please present your findings. Hun looked at the crystal. He had spent the entire journey back trying to write his report. He had started and deleted it 23 times. Every word seemed wrong. Every sentence failed to capture what he had witnessed. Ambassador prompted, your report. Security Chief Axe, a large reptilian being from the warrior caste, leaned forward. This is a simple evaluation. Class 4 species. What is there to discuss? Give us the threat assessment and civilization rating so we can move forward. Threat assessment, civilization rating. The standard categories Hun had used 47 times before. None of them fit. I cannot give you a standard report, Hun said quietly. The chamber erupted in confused murmurs. Ambassadors turned to each other, their various forms of communication creating a chaos of sound and light. Explain yourself, Axe demanded. Hun inserted the crystal into the projection system. I will show you instead. The holographic display activated. Images filled the chamber. Mars with its green patches and swirling atmosphere. The vast colonies spreading across the solar system. The fusion reactors. The terraforming equipment. The healed Earth with its clean oceans and restored forests. This is Earth's solar system as it exists today, Hun said. Not 50 years ago, today. Silence fell across the chamber. That cannot be accurate, said. Our data classified them as Class 4, basic space capability only. Your data is 50 years old, Hun replied. In those 50 years, humans established permanent colonies on 6 planets and 14 moons. They developed fusion power. They terraformed Mars. They healed their dying while simultaneously expanding across their solar system. They did in 50 years what our models predict should take 2,000 years. Impossible, Axe growled. I thought the same thing, Hun said. He changed the display to show the barrier research station. Until I saw this. He played the recordings from his meeting with Doctor and his team. The council watched in growing alarm as the humans explained their discovery of the barrier, their analysis of its structure, and their solution to break through it. They found the containment barrier, whispered. They were never supposed to detect it. They not only detected it, Hun said. They have figured out how to dismantle it. In 3 months, maybe less, the barrier will fall. Humans will have access to faster-than-light travel and the galaxy beyond. The chamber exploded into argument. Ambassadors shouted in dozens of languages. Some demanded immediate military action. Others suggested diplomatic solutions. A few called for evacuation of nearby systems. Axe's voice cut through the chaos. This is a crisis. These humans are clearly dangerous. We must reinforce the barrier, deploy defense fleets, prepare for containment by force if necessary. On what grounds? Asked Ambassador Aura of the Peaceful Collective. They have committed no crimes against the Council. They have harmed no one. They were contained for a reason, Axe argued. 800 years ago we saw their violence, their wars, their weapons. Now they have advanced technology and will soon have FTL capability. They are a threat that must be neutralized. 800 years ago we were violent too, Aura countered. Every species goes through difficult periods. The humans survived theirs. Perhaps that should be celebrated, not feared. The argument raged on. Hun stood silently listening, finally raised her tentacles for silence. Ambassador Hun, you have spent more time with humans than anyone in this chamber. What is your professional assessment? Are they a threat to galactic peace? Every eye in the chamber turned to Hun. This was the moment. His words would shape the Council's response, would determine whether humans would be greeted as friends or met with weapons. He thought about Commander Park, calmly guiding him through Mars' defenses. Doctor showing him the healed Earth with pride. Premier Sora Lee asking if the galaxy would help them undo their cage. Engineer Shin excited about fusion reactors. Historian Song preserving culture alongside technology. Little Han asking if his people had made mistakes too. Doctor and his team working not to build weapons but to reach the stars. Captain saying they wanted to come as friends. Young Wu solving the impossible because no one told her she could not. Are they a threat? Hun repeated. He looked around the chamber, at species who had taken thousands of years to achieve what humans did in decades, at civilizations that had chosen between preservation and expansion, never managing both, at a council that had caged a species out of fear and forgotten about them. Yes, Hun said, they are a threat. Axe smiled triumphantly. Then we are agreed, military containment protocols. They are a threat to our assumptions, Hun interrupted. They are a threat to our comfortable belief that development must be slow. They are a threat to the idea that species must choose between their past and their future. They are a threat to every limitation we have accepted as inevitable. He changed the holographic display again, this time showing the footage of Earth's restored ecosystems, the forests, the clean oceans, the thriving cities that existed in harmony with nature. Every species the Council has studied reached a point where they had to choose, Hun said. Expand or preserve, growth or sustainability. We told ourselves this was the natural order, that resources were finite and sacrifices had to be made. Humans looked at that choice and said no. They refused to choose. They healed their world while building colonies. They maintained their ancient cultures while developing quantum technology. They are teaching children traditional tea ceremonies and quantum physics in the same classroom. He showed footage of the Mars terraforming project. They looked at a dead planet and decided it deserved to be alive, not because they needed it, not because it was economically efficient, but because they believed turning death into life was beautiful. Can any of us say we have thought that way? The chamber was silent now. Ambassadors watched the displays with something like wonder. They learned Galactic Standard in 3 weeks, Hun continued. A language that takes most species years to master. They developed fusion power in 43 years. They found a barrier they should never have detected. They solved technology 1,000 years beyond their capability. And they did all of this while maintaining their compassion, their curiosity, their culture, their hope. He paused, letting his words sink in. Security Chief Axe asked if they are a threat. Council Elder asked for my professional assessment. Here it is. I was sent to evaluate if humans were ready for the galaxy. I return knowing the galaxy is not ready for humans. Explain, demanded. For 800 years we have debated problems we cannot solve, Hun said. How to terraform worlds efficiently, how to achieve sustainable growth, how to maintain culture while advancing technology, how to inspire our young people, how to cooperate across species. Humans have solved all of these problems, not theoretically, not through study. They actually solved them. They lived them. And they did it while we were watching them through outdated data, assuming they would fail. He met Axe's eyes. You want to know if they are dangerous? Yes, they are dangerous to our pride. They are dangerous to our slow, comfortable way of doing things. They are dangerous to the belief that we are the pinnacle of galactic civilization. Because in 50 years they have shown us what we could have been if we had their courage, their determination, their refusal to accept limitations. What do you recommend? Asked quietly. Hun took a deep breath. I recommend immediate diplomatic contact, not containment, not observation, full diplomatic relations, exchange of knowledge, cultural programs, trade agreements, everything we offer to advanced member species. They are not advanced, Axe protested. They are barely 50 years space-capable. They are advanced where it matters, Hun said. They are advanced in their thinking, in their cooperation, in their ability to learn and adapt. They have technology we do not possess. They have solved problems we cannot. They have wisdom we lack. We need them more than they need us. And if we refuse, Axe challenged, if we maintain the barrier, prepare our defenses. Then in 3 months they will tear down the barrier anyway, Hun said, and they will remember us as the ones who caged them, the ones who feared them, the ones who tried to keep them small. Is that how we want to be remembered? He walked to the center of the chamber, looking up at the assembled representatives of galactic civilization. Or do we want to be remembered as the ones who welcomed them, who learned from them, who stood beside them as partners in building a better galaxy? Because they are coming. Nothing we build will stop them now. Our only choice is whether we greet them as friends or face them as the obstacle they will overcome on their way to greatness. The chamber was absolutely silent. Then Ambassador Aura spoke. I vote for diplomatic contact. As do I, said another voice, then another, then more. Axe stood, his voice bitter. You are all fools. You are inviting chaos. Perhaps, Hun said, but I met a little girl on Earth. She asked me if my people made mistakes before we got better. I told her yes. She asked if we could be friends now. I think it is time we stopped being afraid of our mistakes and started learning from beings who overcame theirs. The vote was called. 40 ambassadors voted for immediate diplomatic contact. 7 abstained. Only Axe voted against. Floated to Hun. You will return to Earth. You will be our official ambassador to humanity. You will tell them the barrier will come down by our hand, not theirs. You will tell them we are ready to welcome them. I will tell them, Hun said. 3 months later, Hun stood on the bridge of a human vessel as it crossed the barrier threshold. The exotic energy field parted before them, the council having deactivated it as promised. Doctor stood beside him, watching the stars. How do you feel? She asked. Hopeful, Hun said. For the first time in centuries, I feel hopeful about the future. The communication system activated. This is Ambassador Hun. On behalf of the Galactic Council, welcome to the galaxy. We have been waiting for you. Waiting 800 years, Captain replied with humor in his voice. Yes, Hun said, but you were worth the wait. The human ship accelerated into open space, heading for the first Council world. Behind it came others. Dozens of human vessels carrying scientists, diplomats, engineers, artists, and dreamers, carrying a species that refused to accept limitations, that healed worlds instead of destroying them, that looked at impossible problems and found solutions. Hun had been sent to evaluate Earth. He had returned speechless, but he had found his words in time to change everything. The galaxy would never be the same. And that, Hun thought with satisfaction, was exactly what it needed.